While a lot of Eagles are starting to flash, there are a few players in desperate need of a strong week of practice heading into the Birds' first preseason game. Vic Fangio, he wasn't afraid to call them out today during his presser. Plus, the Birds signed a new linebacker, James Bradberry fills in at safety, and Cam Jurgens left practice with an injury. Oh, and Johnny Wilson, he balled out again, continuing to build up that connection with Jalen Hurts. I'm Thomas Mott, this is The Thomas Mott Show. The pads coming on today wasn't the only new addition to the Birds' Monday training camp practice, with Philadelphia beginning the week by waiving offensive lineman Jason Poe and signing linebacker Shaquille Quarterman. Now, Quarterman was a 2022 fourth-round draft pick of the Jags and technically appeared in 65 games over the course of his career. That was spent almost completely on special teams, having never actually recorded a start at linebacker. Now, conventional wisdom says Quarterman is just kind of a camp linebacker body. Oren Burks has been out with injury, and so you need somebody to actually play in those upcoming 3 preseason games. But at the same time, we'll see how he looks over the coming weeks. Still, he was out there today, as you see on your screen, getting acclimated. Best of luck to the young linebacker. Again, we'll just wait and see. Now, also spotted at practice for the first time during training camp was center Jason Kelce, which didn't really surprise you, being the fact everyone says he's been all around the building the past couple of weeks. But again, first time actually at practice, so worth noting. Oh, and apparently the Eagles' director of joy, Reggie White-Lurie, was also at practice today, getting a treat from Senior Gardner-Johnson before practice. Now, worth noting on the injury front, Tyler Steen was back at practice today, at least on a pitch count. He didn't do a lot of actual drills, but he had the pads on. Good news there. Becton was also back and started at right guard after missing yesterday with an illness, although again, he was very clearly on a pitch count. Next up was the Vic Fangio press conference, where his usual honesty continued to be at the forefront, as he, for instance, talked about how Nakobe Dean has looked a little bit iffy so far during training camp.
Good. I thought Nakobe had the first few days of practice, I thought he played really good. And, took a step back a little bit in the stadium practice, but overall he's been doing really good.
Now, Fangio didn't just rip Nakobe Dean and say he's been awful. He's been good, then had a pretty bad open practice, and then has been good. Still, though, not the resounding seal of approval we would want from the third-year linebacker. I think the Nakobe Dean experience was best summed up by his play today. Like, for instance, early on, he bullied Will Shipley into a Kenny Pickett sack. Nice. Then, later on, he was getting absolutely torched in pass coverage. Bad. Dean is going to need a surprisingly good preseason in order to have any shot at winning the linebacker job. Zach Bond clearly is the favorite right now alongside Devin White, but again, time will tell. Now, speaking of preseason, sounds like we could actually see the starters play at some point during the preseason, at least over the next few weeks, if you believe what Vic Fangio mentioned earlier today.
Graham said that he wouldn't be surprised if you wanted to see the starters play on defense Friday night. What goes into that decision, and would you like to see that?
Yeah, I think Nick is going to, at some point, tell you guys what the rotation may be, generally speaking. I do think he's talked about playing those guys. I don't think he's made a final decision. But I do think it's good that guys get to play some in the preseason. Even the best players I've been around, they want to play, and they don't want their first play of the year to be a regular season game. They want to get out there and feel it.
And if the starters actually do play, my guess would be the third preseason game, because then you have 2 weeks off before the regular season starts, so it's kind of like having a bye week, but we won't really know for sure. And while we're at it, I got 2 tickets to that preseason game at Lincoln Financial Field versus the Vikings. Lower level, section 110. You never sat that low. Here is your chance. All you got to do, go down below, of course, be a subscriber and comment tickets. And of course, if this video gets over 2,000 likes, and let's just say, 750 comments? Very doable. I'll randomly select one person who comments down below, obviously a subscriber, to go ahead and go to that preseason game. Oh, and by the way, I also have 2 tickets to the Eagles' Monday night home opener versus the Atlanta Falcons, giving those away after we get to 60,000 subs. Very, very close to that, but more actual regular season tickets are also in the works. I haven't purchased, it's just a matter of getting to past 60,000 subs. Now, Fangio continued his press conference, updating us on some players with uphill battles, let's just say, to earn more actual reps. I thought his take on Jalyx Hunt was actually pretty eye-opening.
I think he started camp good. He had a carryover from a pretty good offseason. And when the pads came on, you could tell that, playing for Cornell and Houston Baptist wasn't exactly the same as the NFL. And but he's grinding, and I expect him to continue to improve.
How's the progression going with Bryce Huff being an every down player?
It's getting better. He's working very hard at it. He's very prideful in it. and he's improving.
So I guess all those articles about him turning heads during the early part of training camp was true, and then the pads come on, and it's like, oh, okay, not necessarily bad, but he has a lot of work to do. Now, sticking with the defensive line, they continue to have a very good day of camp. It's kind of been the theme so far the past couple of days. Jordan Davis was all over the Eagles' backfield during 11-on-11s, proving once again he's definitely gearing up for a big year. But I also really like what I've heard about Milton Williams so far. His training camp has been really, really solid, and he received some very high praise from his new DC entering a contract year.
Yeah, I like Milt. Milt's a good player. He's solid, both versus the run and in pass rush. He's a guy that I've, from afar, have liked that the Eagles have had. In fact, I tried to get us to trade for him last year in Miami, but Howie wouldn't do it. But I like Milt. Milt's a pro.
Now, I mentioned injuries entering practice and players coming back, but there were some injuries during practice that we need to keep an eye on. For one, Cam Jurgens left practice today not to be seen again with an unknown injury. We have actually no idea, at least upon uploading this video, what happened, how bad it is, but thoughts and prayers right there. You kind of need Jurgens to be okay. Also worth noting, Gardner-Johnson, he left the field with what seemed to be a minor injury. Again, don't exactly know what it is, but that did bump James Bradberry up to the first-team defense at safety, which, again, is worth noting. Now, Bradberry moving in for Gardner-Johnson at safety is worth noting because we've all been kind of waiting for James Bradberry to actually be traded, and so far that hasn't actually happened. And with Smitty Brown seemingly still very far off from actually being, a healthy addition to the safety depth chart, your safety overall group, it's pretty weak behind Reed Blankenship and Gardner-Johnson. If a serious injury happens, Bradberry's apparently going to be the guy, and so far that seems to be the case, at least as confirmed today when Gardner-Johnson went out. Now, also worth noting, we had our second interception of training camp today. No, not Jalen Hurts. He's still flawless. Tanner McKee was picked off because Will Shipley dropped a pass and it skipped into the defender's hands. Nothing major here, but it is worth noting that McKee, he's been getting some second-team reps with Kenny Pickett seemingly not taking a firm grasp of the backup job, which I'm honestly pretty surprised about. I thought Kenny Pickett was going to run away with the backup role. He has all these starts as an actual, starting quarterback in the National Football League. But so far, McKee, he's not been terrible. I think the preseason games are going to be a very interesting quarterback battle to keep an eye on. They're not just going to give the role to Kenny Pickett. If McKee is better, been in the system longer, at least in Philadelphia, he's going to win that job. Now, speaking of QB1, he stole the show at practice again, this time, though, by driving around Nick Sirianni and Big Dom in their golf cart, and also apparently today on social media being the face of a 2028 Olympics flag football commercial that have people thinking, is he going to play? Now, in terms of his actual play on the field, Hurts did exactly what he's done every single day of practice so far, dominate. He went 11-13, 3 touchdowns, and you guessed it, 0 interceptions yet again. Devontae Smith caught 2 of those touchdowns, both in the red zone, continuing his very impressive training camp, which, by the way, is making the Eagle cornerbacks a lot more dangerous in sort of an iron-sharpening iron sort of way, at least according to Isaiah Rodgers today.
Against the best guys in the league, it makes your game a lot easier when it's time to go against other guys across the league because you're going against the best of the best, even through walkthroughs and day in and day out and just picking their brains and understanding, what I'm doing wrong and them telling me, what to do better. So they definitely make my game a lot better.
Also dominating is the Johnny Wilson hype train, which continued today after a beautiful leaping touchdown snag over Kelee Ringo in the red zone. Wilson's apparently not going anywhere, especially since his comfort level in this offense seems to be growing by the day, according to the man himself.
I definitely feel like now I've gotten a lot more comfortable with the offense and, just the timing and pace of things. Definitely in the beginning it was kind of like, holy crap, everything's just moving so fast. But then, having guys like Jalen, AJ, Devontae Parris, other dudes in the room, you got this, you do this, always helping. It's made it a lot easier, the transition a lot easier. So.
The Johnny Wilson story is fantastic, but we need preseason action. We've got to see this guy in a preseason game, backup quarterback, third-string quarterback, doesn't matter. Show me you can do it in an actual game, and I'm going to buy into the hype even more than I already have. Still, though, it does help when other people are singing the praises of the former FSU wide receiver, like, for instance, Eagles wide receiver coach who told reporters that he's liking what he's seen so far.
With a guy that's his size that you need to overcome being in this league, and he's worked on those things, and he's got a good rapport with Jalen, just being here now for the 3rd year, and he's turning into a guy that we can trust, just to do things that other guys have done in the past, and now it's going to be, his turn to step up and have a chance to make some plays for us.
Now, some other notable plays and players from today, starting with Moro Jomo. Mentioned him yesterday. He continued to stand out in a very, very good way, according to reporters. Fangio mentioned him in his press conference, though, said he's still a little bit undersized, but very, very athletic. Zach Bond, he blew up a screen pass intended for Saquon Barkley, connecting with Saquon the second the football touched his body. And Jake Elliott, I guess, showing off his tackle skills here. What's going on? All in all, a pretty good practice, minus the injuries. We're still waiting on a Cam Jurgens update. Again, by the time you watch this show, maybe there's an update, maybe there's not. I'll have the full thing going down on Twitter. Follow me there at RealThomasMod. And of course, a breakdown for tomorrow. Philadelphia back practicing on Tuesday. Wednesday, they'll have a walkthrough, kind of an off day on Thursday. And then the preseason game. Myself and Josh Davis are going to be broadcasting live on our channels. We're going to have it. So if you guys don't have a way to watch it, join us for that broadcast. We've been working on a ton of new graphics for all of our play-by-play calls. It's going to be the best Eagles watching experience on YouTube by far. I guarantee you that. Come check out a little bit of what we've updated this Friday evening. I'm Thomas Mott, hanging out on a Monday. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.